welcome to another episode of the Achievers Pod. Every time that we come here, we share with you tools, tips, and resources to help you achieve success in everything and anything that you do. And today, in the studio, I'm so grateful again because I have another awesome woman in the house, who is a powerhouse. And we're going to be talking about different things, the business that she runs. And it's so really dynamic because it's just something so different that we are bringing to the table today. So I want you to grab your lunch, grab your notepad, and get ready, to dive into this session. And I have Crystal Brown in the house, and she is the CEO. All right, she is the CEO and co-founder of Circ Nova. All right, so I am going to welcome her. You are welcome, ma'am. So today, I know you are the CEO of Circ Nova, but I really just want you to introduce yourself. Let people, I know I've said that, but please say we can say it in a more better way for our audience. Can you please take the time to just give us a background into you and all that you do?
Sure. So yeah, again, my name's Crystal Brown. I am the CEO and co-founder of Circ Nova, where we use generative AI for drug-driven drug discovery. So basically, we're leveraging AI to be able to discover new ways to approach medicine and programmable medicines in a really fancy way, just saying we're trying to decrease the amount of time it takes for a lot of treatments to hit market that can treat a lot of diseases we've never treated before. So that's what I do. That's the company. My background is very unorthodox. I'm very non-traditional. So I spent the first 15 years of my career in automotive manufacturing. I like to say I fell into biotech by accident. I
Ooh.
was given an opportunity while I was working with one of the major automotive companies. I was, headed the executive path, and I was given an opportunity to support a small startup who had just started, and it happened to be a biotech startup. So I knew nothing about the industry. I knew nothing about pharmaceuticals. I was a total fish out of water, but I was strong in finance and operations. And so
Mm.
I was able to support that startup by keeping their books part-time. And that was my introduction into biotech. So I was curious, and I think this is something that's incredibly important as women, right? So I was really curious. I kept asking questions and getting on people's nerves. I was like,
Mm.
what's pre-IND, and why is milestone one $250,000 and milestone two $4 million, and
Hmm.
why does it take this long to go from this step to the, and I kept getting on everyone's nerves to the point they asked, why don't you just switch over to biotech from automotive?
Biotech.
And I was like, what? Nobody does that. Like, I'm not a scientist. I don't have the technical background, but I had amazing people who saw my interest and saw that I'm a sponge and I love to learn.
Hmm.
And they really supported my transition. So that's how I ended up in biotech. And, fast forward to today, launching my second biotechnology startup. So,
Oh wow, that is amazing. You kind of like dive into uncharted territory for you after like 15 years.
yeah.
Oh
It's
wow, that is
unexpected.
that is fantastic. So I really want you to kind of really share a little bit more about Soc Novo, because the thing is what you guys are doing, especially with biotech and leveraging AI and being able to come up with different products, to be able to manage certain disease. I mean, that is like on a high level, because I know sometimes some people are skeptical about AI and things like that, but you are actually using it, to really kind of change the landscape of, some healthcare, some products in that line. Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah. So a lot of things there. So definitely in the new world of AI, right? You have some people who are like, listen, I don't like where this is taking the world. It can replace humans.
Hmm.
I like to offer a different perspective, which is AI is a tool. It has as much
Mm,
power as we give it, and that power can be used for good or bad, just like everything else in the world. And so, to me, if you take it and you deploy it in a positive way, in a way that can change lives, in a way that can save the world, then I
mm,
want to do everything I can to make sure we're leveraging that, and not just AI as like a buzzword or an algorithm, but actually like building our own architecture, our own machine learning models, to making sure like we are controlling the output of our engine, which we've trademarked as the Nova engine. So one thing that I am emphatic about is making sure that we are controlling exactly what goes into our machine, exactly what's
mm.
coming out of it, making sure that we're getting that data and that output that we want. And that data and that output is what allows us to change lives, not the AI part of it.
Yeah.
That's just a tool.
Oh, wow. I mean, I love that part because you said using AI as a tool and you guys controlling, you modify for the output, for the result that you guys are looking for. Oh, wow. I mean, and I think it brings in another perspective into AI and into the resources and the tools that are available, out there and how we use that. So, I want you to really share some of the successes, using leveraging AI with all the things you do. Kind of share some of the successes that you guys, you have experienced in your journey so far.
Sure. So when we were first designing the Nova engine, we were first trying to go from just generation zero, just okay, this is we're taking public domains, public databases, and we're using that as a foundation for the model. We knew we couldn't sit there, and so the next goal was to get it to generation one or generation two, where
Mm,
we are now creating our own proprietary data from data that we've originally sourced from open sources or open spaces.
mm,
And so one of the first successes we had was we were trying to develop a Circ RNA for hepatocellular carcinoma, liver cancer. And so
mm.
we were able, in collaboration with University of Michigan Center for RNA Biomedicine, to be able to produce the world's first 3D structure of that. And I was able to show it at JP Morgan Healthcare Conference this past January as one of two
Wow.
underrepresented founders in the country. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to show that AI leads to many, not just technological advances, but
Mm.
medical advances to treat a lot of these diseases that we previously thought we've got no hope in curing liver cancer. We've got no way in curing ovarian cancer. A lot of these cancers out here, we now have a shot at it. And that's what AI gives us. It gives us a shot at computational biological medicines that we'll be able to program ourselves for that result that we want.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is amazing. Like the way you guys are actually utilizing AI and leveraging with the product that you guys do. As women and even as human, when you're talking about the how you guys use it in the healthcare space, especially to be able to come up with products and to help some disease and all of that. And that is so great because the thing is, so many years, I mean, many months ago, we don't have that. And then you may have certain disease that maybe there are no cure for them, or
Yeah.
that we don't have a way to manage them and kind of give people an opportunity to have a prolonged life. But then you guys are able to use AI to be able to come up with something that can bridge that gap and help to kind of meet some need in healthcare.
Yeah.
So I really want you to, I'm a medical personnel, I'm a registered nurse, and you see people with different type of disease, and sometimes you hear of some disease that is so really uncommon, and then we have cancer, which I mean like is growing every day. But then you guys are able to come up with something to treat something like that. So I really want you guys to, if you can just explain some of the things, some of the diseases that you guys have product for, that you're able to come up with some things that can actually help to manage, control, and probably lower the rate. So can
Yeah.
you talk about that?
Sure, sure. So, one thing that I'll point out is a lot of these diseases that Circ RNA is now discoverable as being effective toward to treatments towards. A lot of these we've had like the lock. It's the lock and key that you need.
Mm,
So, not going too deep into it, but you have a ton of scientists who've done amazing, brilliant work through the years where they've got a ton of that sequencing data that they need to be able to develop the molecule, but the structural data was limited or not available. You need
mm,
both in order to have that lock and key to develop actually what that circRNA is that will actually lead to that treatment. And
mm,
so what AI has done for us, what the Nova engine does is allows us to say, well, we see you've got the lock. We've
mm,
got the key to match that lock, and those two things together will become the molecule, and that's what we can develop. So that's kind of how we get there. And then in terms of diseases, we're able to say, okay, so for example, this particular researcher has been working on treating triple negative breast cancer for X amount of time, right? He's been working on it 5, 6, 7 years.
mhm,
And all he's needed is that structural data that he can marry with all of the sequential data he's built over the years to say, oh, we found the right match.
match.
Those two things are there. We've got the lock, we've got the sequence, we got the structure. Now we have everything we need to be able to further develop it. That's what we're able to do at Circ Nova. So we're not reinventing the wheel and coming up with
Hmm,
brand new research. For a lot of it is saying, hey, how long have you been working on treating this particular neurodegenerative disease? And what can we do with the data that now we've been able to create computationally
hmm,
will match with the efforts you put in, and now we get that result that we want. That now we, at the end of it, we look and we say, hey, we've got something validated here in our lab that shows we'll be able to develop this molecule in collaboration with the pharma and say this is a market, this is a medicine we can get to market a lot faster. So when you talk about diseases such as Alzheimer's, well,
mhm,
my father has Alzheimer's, my grandmother had it, and so it's something that runs in my family
mhm,
very prevalently. And so I'm passionate and adamant about saying we need to find a treatment for this
for that.
in the next 20 years so that
Hmm,
my children can actually, I can recognize them in 30 years, unlike my father and his mother. And so it's that level of urgency that we have to have in saying, how are we going to decrease the amount of time it takes to
hmm.
get these treatments that we didn't even think we could build and now get them to market a little bit faster?
Wow. I mean, that is super, super amazing. It's like being able to use data from the past with what is currently going on, with, I mean, with what you guys have available, and to be able to count on what is to come in the future, right? Because of some of the things you guys are putting together. I, I mean, it's so fantastic. So that is genius. Let me just
Thank you. Thank
let me
you.
let me just say that. So we are going to dive into the business part of this because a lot of people they are shy or probably maybe working with people, teaming with people, but you are like co-founders. You have other people that kind of you do this thing together. I want you to really share on that partnership, how it come about and how that has really helped Sock Nova, to continue to thrive today.
Yeah. So, early stage startups they're very challenging. They're very tricky. You're constantly trying to figure out what is my proof of concept? What's my minimal viable product? How do I get other people to see the value in my product and my company so that I can get the investment I need to progress the company forward? It's all these different kind of components to making your early stage startup work, where I think if you drill it down to just the foundation and you go back to the core of it, which are your founders,
Hmm.
who's going to pick this idea off the ground? A lot of startups die in ego. And one thing
Hmm.
Nova I wouldn't allow from day one is there are no egos. So
Hmm.
I may be CEO,
No
but
ego.
my role is no more important than CTO and CSO and CBO. That there's just no way. If we had all the money in the world, but we didn't have innovation, and if we
Hmm.
didn't have the technology built, we wouldn't have a company. If we had all of the science and all the technology, but no money, we'd have no company. If
Company.
we had the tech, but no money inside, like you see what I mean? So the way that I structured the company
Hmm.
is a way that I govern my life, which is humility is everything.
Hmm.
There's no room for ego. You
No
have
room
to
for ego.
determine what is the goal, and that's what we did as co-founders. So myself, Joseph D'Angelo, who is an MIT educated scientist, just brilliant. he gets to do what he's brilliant at, which is making sure we're at the forefront of innovation, making sure he's designing the experiments in a way that's going to allow us to be successful and have a lot of footing in this area. We've got my CTO, Steve Schwartz, who's just amazing. This is like his fifth startup. He's built amazing amounts of just AI, just a guru, but that's what he does well. And then what I do well, obviously, is let everybody know why this company is incredibly valuable, make sure we have the resources, make sure that we are set up to commercialize our product, make sure that everything is moving in a way that's progressing the business forward. And I think when you have three leaders who are very strong and confident in what our product is, confident in the type of company we have, but more than that, have a different level of respect amongst each other as founders. That's how we make a lot of progress. There are no egos. There's no room for it. Ego trumps progress every time.
Oh, I like that. Ego trumps progress. I
Every
love
day.
that. Every time. So I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper a little bit, that when you are starting up, having the idea, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. What are the things you were looking for, like in partnership? And how can you advise people as well who are in that stage, they want to have a startup, but then how can they choose people that will co-found the business with them?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So I'm going to give you a really unpopular answer. It's like dating. Every
It's
founder,
like dating, guys.
it's
You hear
like
that? It's
dating.
like dating.
Listen, I tell every woman I know, when you're thinking of starting a company, when you're looking for co-founders, if you wouldn't marry that person, don't go into business with them. If I can't sit down with you and break bread with you and see how you think and really figure out what makes you tick, what's important to you, what do you value, you can have all the technical skills in the world, but how are we going to work together if we don't have the shared integrity, the same morals, the same values, if we don't have the same goals? There's no way it's going to work. And I think what happens is, as founders, we go, oh my gosh, this person is brilliant. They're great. They can build great tech, and they can't figure out why the relationship isn't working. You didn't date that person long enough. I dated my co-founders. I dated them for a couple months before we cemented and we said, this is what we want to do. So by the time we officially signed on the dotted line, I understood. Well, I've known Joe a long time. So Joe is a different story. That's my CSO. But with my CTO, for example, who's co-founder, we dated a couple months and making sure, hey, this is what's happening. This is the way the business is moving. This is what I'm going to have to show in a year. Do you think we can get there? We talked about, he's married with kids. Well, I'm married with kids, and that's important to talk about, because when you're running a startup, if you don't want to acknowledge your daily life responsibilities, the company won't get anywhere. So we had a lot of conversations around, what's your work style like? What's your work ethic like? How do you handle a deadline approaching? And I think having those conversations saved us from a lot of really poor things that can happen. So I think when you're choosing a co-founder, to answer your question, or you're looking, or other founders are saying, what do I look for? Don't discount who that person is just as a person. How do they live their life every day? Because that's the guy you're going to marry. That's the woman you're going to marry, so to speak. And you're going to be stuck with them for the next X amount of years every day. So you better like them just enough to work with them.
Oh my, I love your response to that question. All right, you see it as if you are dating the person, and if you cannot marry this person, it's gonna be better for you not to go in. And I think at the same time, you're talking about giving yourself, like dating, like you said, giving the time to get to know the other person, their day-to-day life, and all of that, to know that you are actually comfortable with that.
Listen, I had a woman that I was thinking of bringing on, right? And so we were doing the dating thing. I said, it's important to me that we get to know each other over the course of a couple months. Like we just kind of just see how each other, I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulty. All right, there we go. I said that it's important to me that we get to know each other and we kind of see how we are. Well, over the next 2 months, we had a lot of meetings, and guess what I noticed? Every time I said something, she would cut me off. Every time I said I thought we should do something, it was combative. Every single time. So it wasn't, she was brilliant. She was great. She's an amazing woman. But the working relationship, I remember after about a month, I said, this isn't going to work. Because if I can't ever get a word in edgewise, if
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out how to approach this project, and before we even have the outline, we've now gotten into 5 debates, guess what? That's counterproductive. So this doesn't work for me. And I ended up going in a different direction with a guy who didn't have as many credentials as her, but did our communication. I was like, wow, every session is productive. Every time we meet for 2 hours, there's something that comes out of it. Every time I meet with her for 2 hours,
nothing good.
I mean, we kind of have a direction, but then there's a lot of, well, we'll talk about that next time. And so when you start looking at that kind of thing, I think what happens is you really change your philosophy on who do I want to work with? Who can I actually pull this thing off with?
Wow. I mean that is very, very interesting. Like you say, sometimes we can be looking at the credentials, but not just basing the decision solely on that one, that we are looking at other skills, other characteristics, or other things. You going on this dating thing, and just getting to kind of get a feel of it, to look at communication style, how you guys are able to work together, are you guys able to understand each other? And like you were saying, if you cannot get the word in, it's like, how are you guys going to be able to do it? Wow,
Yeah.
that is amazing. So, and I want you to talk about, because we're talking about this partnership, what are some kind of like a big no-no, like when you see certain things that, they talk about red flags. So what are some red flags that when you're trying to date somebody, before you get to that stage of marrying somebody, coming into partnership together in the business, what are some of the red flags that once you see them, you can kind of say, you know what, I don't think I want to step into this territory. Can you share a little bit on that?
Sure. So this is where, we talk about kind of like identity in that, right? So I am a woman and I am a Black woman and I am incredibly proud of that. Like, this is who I am.
Who I am.
So, in talking sometimes to different people, particularly in biotech, which can be very research, very academia, very,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, very snobbish, right? I
Uh-huh.
always have to make sure, are you listening to
Hmm.
me or are you trying to assess me and size me up and make sure I'm as smart as
Hmm.
I'm pretending to be? If I get that vibe that I'm talking with someone and it's a constant judgment of,
Oh.
what did you do to kind of get here? Uh,
Mm.
are you sure you know it? And it seems like it's more of an interrogation than getting to know each other. Immediate red flag,
Red flag.
because I'm not trying to assess, I'm trying to get to know you. So if
Know
we're
you
meeting for the
exactly.
first time and you're more interested in my credentials or you're more
Mm-hmm.
interested in my network and, oh, how do you know this person? And you don't really want to get to know me
As
and
a
how we
person.
approach
Hmm.
this, then I already know, there's a red flag. The other thing is, and this is probably unpopular because it's business, but if you come to me and all you talk about is money, and that's it, and all you want to talk about is money, money's amazing. We do everything we do because it's our livelihood.
Yeah.
However, if you get into startup, especially in this industry, and it's only about the money, you'll never make it, because
Mm.
that vision of the long-term substantial amount of money that you can make, you won't get there if that's the only thing motivating you every day. Because there are going
Very
to be
true.
some days where maybe that money will come, maybe that money won't come. And if that's the only thing sustaining you, then for me, that's a red flag, because it's certainly not the only thing that's sustaining me and
Yes.
why I'm doing this. And then the other thing, and again, I look for a lot of non-traditional things with people, right?
Mm.
I purposely take anybody that I'm going to work with out to eat purposely before I hire them, because I
Mm.
need to see how you treat the waiter. I need to see
Mm-hmm.
how you treat customers around you. I need
Mm.
to see, how did you treat the janitor when we walked in? How did you look at this place if it wasn't a 5-star restaurant? How did you
Mm.
accept that? And if I start getting a feeling that you're someone who treats service workers wrong, I don't care who you are, you can't work with me,
Mm.
because our livelihood depends on service workers. So if you can't be nice to the waitress, then
Mm.
please don't be nice to me as the CEO, because I have nothing for you.
Mm.
So those are some red flags
Some
that I
of red flags. Wow. I mean, and that is truly amazing because you take them into an environment to kind of watch them. Because when
yeah,
you bring somebody into the office, of course, you know what to expect, right? And they will give you what you are
they'll show
expecting.
you. They will show you. And I feel like if I take you out to eat and I watch you be rude and nasty to someone who, that is their job. That is what they're doing. They are serving
Mm-hmm.
you, and you can't find it in yourself to be kind to that person. I want nothing to do with you. I don't care who you are.
Wow, wow. I like that aspect of you, Let's get out of the normal routine, not office thing, but go to like a neutral environment where,
Right. Yeah.
all of my assessing skills are on, but you don't know that. But I am
Exactly.
seeing how you relate with other people, how you interact with people, do you look down on them? Do that is really a great I think that's a great thing to do. So business owners, you can steal that from Crystal, okay? If you are hiring somebody, and especially if you are hiring people that's gonna be relating with people as well, that's gonna be an ambassador of the company. You want somebody that can relate with everybody, not somebody who is gonna be judgmental on people, but that relate and respect every person around them. That is amazing. And
Because and look, here's one more point on that. Because if you are too good to be kind and interact with the waitress, what happens when I ask you to do a task that you feel is beneath you? I may ask you to do something really small, like, hey, do you think you could get, this little 2-page summary together? What happens if you think that's beneath you because you're all the way up here? That you can't have, it goes back to no egos in startups if you're going to be successful. So if you think you're too good to talk to the waitress, you're probably too good to send an email or something, and that's okay. We don't need that energy around.
We don't need that energy, yes. Those
Yeah.
are some red flags. I hope guys are paying attention to this. And so I want you to really kind of talk about, some of the successes you guys have been able to accomplish having, co-founders with you who are really skilled in what they do, because that is one thing you look for. You are skilled in your area of marketing, doing the business, somebody in the area of technology, AI that you bring together. I want to kind of talk about the synergetic power effect of you as a team working together for the overall success of Circ Nova.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you know what it comes down to. I think it comes down to our success being we are jack of all trades, so to speak. Nobody is unwilling to do something that's outside of their comfort zone. So, for example, we had to present at Johnson and Johnson's poster challenge. We were one of 26 in the country selected in May. Really excited. My CSO fell under the weather that particular, like we were supposed to be there, he was supposed to present, and he was sick, which meant it was
Oh
me.
boy, you have to
So
prepare.
I'm a non-technical founder. I'm not a scientist. So I'm going, woo, okay, I've got to get in front of everybody and I've got to present this science as if I'm a high-level
Level
PhD,
scientist.
and I'm not. But what I love about our team is because Joe couldn't be there, he sent me an entire 2-page talking document. This is what you do. This is what you hit. This is how we do. We have been able to fill in the gaps for each other so many times. I've had finance calls where I've said to my CTO, I need you to take the call. I can't do this one. I've got that. We filled in on panels for each other. We've had to take each other's meetings. Again, it gets back to A, the death of an ego, but B, being able to recognize each other's skills that may not be as a parent, right? So it's really easy to pick on the obvious skills and say, well, Steve builds amazing tech. He ought to build all the tech. But I think what's worked so well for us is we're able to say, ooh, that one's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Let me go identify the resource that we need to make sure the company isn't suffering because I'm pigheaded enough to say,
Oh
oh, I know
wow.
something I don't know. I want to give my team all of the credit. No one does that on our team. We all say, you know what? I thought I could do this. I thought I could take it down this route, but this is a little bit out of my area of expertise. I'm going to go ahead and call in this person. I'm going to sit with them, get some advice, and then I'll come back and make a decision. So I think it's quite frankly, I think it's about vulnerability and all of the unpopular things. So we sit in all of these startup type communities that are, well, you've got to know your marketing, you've got to know your customers. We know that. That's par for the course. What are the things we don't talk about? And it's things like communication, it's things like shared goals, it's things like red flags, it's things like saying, listen, at the end of the day, when it's midnight and we have something that just came across and we got to turn it in tomorrow morning, and I don't know what I'm doing, will we get in there together and fight to make sure this company is a success? And what I have with my co-founders is we all have that mentality.
Wow, that is beautiful, and that is golden that you all have that shared vision, that it's not like it's one-sided, that you all can come together and be like, we are in this together. Though it may not be my, my sweet spot, but for the success of the company, we can do this. I can get additional resource. I can ask for help, just rather than having things to kind of lag behind, but you able to do that. And I think everything boils down to when you were talking about dating earlier on, to be able to, because if you are comfortable with that person, you can be able to step in for the other person.
Yes.
You shared when you have to step in for somebody to do a presentation, and the person is okay to be like, yes, you can have all this information, right? Not withholding anything for you. Make sure you are comfortable, make sure you're looking good, make sure you do a fantastic job, you over deliver. I mean, I think that is super amazing that when you are looking into partnership, that those are some of the things that you consider. All right, so we are going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. I just have maybe 2 or 3 questions. So I want you to kind of talk into some of the challenges, because as business, as a startup, that of course challenges. They talk about data. Some startups don't survive after certain years, but you guys are still thriving. So I want to talk about some of the challenges that you guys encounter, Circ Nova, and how you are able to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit on the professional and personal. On the professional side, a lot of the challenge that Circ Nova had early on is we're an incredibly innovative company. So this is new technology, and trying to get investors, I would say, to really see the value of what we see, even though it was conceptual and we didn't have any hard data and we didn't have that molecule yet. How do you conceptually get people to understand the value of something that you haven't proven yet? And that's a ginormous challenge. So from May, when we started the company, through December, my everyday life was focused on how do I get people to see what we see? How do I get people to believe we believe, so that we're able to get the funding we need so that we have a company? And that was a huge hurdle. So it really took breaking things down piece by piece. I'm a big puzzle person. Is that piece okay? Great. Put that there, and then we'll figure out what matches to it next. Okay, what did we do there? We got that going. Business development, got it. And so, what we were really careful about, what I was really careful about, is trying to say, listen, from May to December, nobody's going to give us $1 because all we've got is great ideas. So what can we do to get off the ground, and how do we sustain before anybody gives us $1? In the meantime, how do we make sure that we're hitting a couple milestones so that when I start saying in January, give us money, people will start doing that? And so that was a big challenge, but we were very gratefully able to overcome it by putting a little bit of money in ourselves. So that's really important. Founders, I would say to anyone, people want to see that you've got some skin in the game. So when they came in, we put a little bit of money in ourselves to show like, no, we're so passionate about this. We're willing to put our own couple dollars into it. And then I went after a couple of grants, because I knew grants, we wouldn't have to pay them back. It was an investment. And so to get us started, we ended up with about $100K just to get us started. And we stretched that $100K from May all the way through December because there was no other dollar coming in. And so you ask what the challenge is? $100K for 9 months. Guess what? You're not paying salaries. Nobody's making any money. You're not able to do a whole lot of things. All you can do is get things to the point that other people see the value. And so that actually goes into a personal thing, right? Well, if you're not able to pay salaries up front, because we got to get to the point where we're fundraising ready, you definitely better be prepared for that personal challenge, right? So that required me having a great conversation with my husband to say, hey, I'm not going to make any money for a year. So when I started the company, I had to say, not only am I not going to make money, I'm going to spend some of your money on this company that's not going to make any
transparency and communication.
Yeah. So, and then the last thing I would say is a personal challenge, and I think this is true for every founder out there, and that's balance. I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a CEO, I am a daughter. And so when you look at all the roles that we all play in our lives, startup is really easy to get consumed by this every day where it's all you're thinking about from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep. You have to make sure, and it's something I remind myself of daily, that I'm not letting go of the things that matter most, that the people who matter most to me understand why this is so time consuming.
Wow, wow. I mean, I love the way you put it together. I love the way you put it together. From the outside, being transparent, you put all the cards on the table. I
Gotcha.
mean, this is where I am. This is, if money is not coming in, this is why, to really have that open conversation. So, and I know you talk a little bit about balance. Before we wrap, I just really want to, as a wife, as a mother, as a business person, we are wearing so many hats. You have to step in, you have to probably work extensive hours sometimes. So how are you able to balance, your personal, business, family, all of those? How are you able to put all the puzzles together?
Well, look, Victoria, I'm gonna bring it full circle and go back to what I said about dating. Who
Hmm.
you marry, who your significant other is, whoever your partner is, they have to be on board. And people don't talk enough about that. But I wouldn't be able to do anything that I'm able to do if I didn't have a supportive spouse. Because guess what? I can't be at PTA meeting Tuesday night at 5. I
Um,
can't I can't pick up the kid from soccer practice, right? Like all of that had to shift to dad. And so because I have a great supportive spouse who
hmm.
gets it and not always super happy, but gets it, right? And is there
Exactly.
and is committed. Once your family's committed to it, you can do anything. I feel like Superwoman because my family makes me believe I'm Superwoman and they let me
Wow.
know that they know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's okay that you may not be able to be at this event because we know what you're doing for our family. So communication, balance, and more than anything, transparency and vulnerability. And look, and date. Date in business and date in real life. Date both.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. It has been a great time, having you in the studio today, sharing your wealth of information and about your company, Circ Nova, what you guys are doing, leveraging AI, biotech. I mean, it's so fascinating. And I am truly grateful for what you guys are doing. So as we wrap up, I just really want you to just give one or two advice to maybe new business startups there, or those who are like considering partnership as well, for them to be able to get their ideas off the ground. Just kind of give them one or two tips as we wrap up.
Sure. So here are my little jewels. Trust yourself always before anyone else. Never ever take advice from someone with whom you wouldn't trade lives ever. And always be transparent. In this world, people will try to convince you that if you pull the wool over someone's eyes or if you're vague and mysterious, people will get more excited. No, they won't. Be cemented in who you are and you never will go wrong. That's it.
Wow, wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has
Thank you for
been
having
an
me.
amazing time with you. Thank you for, putting yourself out there. Thank you for sharing tips, resources, and giving us advice of how to do this business startup thing. We are truly, truly grateful. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.